A man dies alone on a planet that no human being will ever walk on again. And somehow, that's the happy ending. That's where Star City leaves us. Not with fireworks, not with a triumphant return home, with a bittersweet, quiet death on Venus, and 3 other lives left shattered back on Earth. If you haven't watched the finale of Apple TV's Star City yet, turn back now, because we're about to break down every twist, every betrayal, and every gut-punch decision that got us here. Let's start with the miracle nobody saw coming. The Venera spacecraft, the one everyone assumed was falling apart in orbit, was somehow still alive, still functioning, still capable of getting someone home, and that single fact changed everything for everyone involved, from the cosmonauts stranded in space to the man back on Earth who built the whole program from nothing. But here's the thing about miracles in this show. They always come with a price, and someone else always ends up paying it. Valya knew exactly what he was risking when he stowed away on that mission. What he didn't seem to fully grasp, or maybe just refused to think about, was what it would cost Sasha and Lakshmi. These two had trained for this. They believed in it. They wanted nothing more than to fulfill their mentor's lifelong dream of reaching Venus. And instead, they found themselves trapped with a man running from the KGB, a man who'd been secretly working with the Americans, a man whose only real plan was survival. Valya didn't calculate the fallout. He couldn't afford to. Getting caught meant death, and Venus, impossibly, became his only way out. That decision detonates almost immediately. When a fire breaks out on board and Sasha manages to kill the flames by cutting the power, the ship survives, but its communication system doesn't. They're cut off, completely alone, with no way to reach ground control, no way to prove they're even alive. And that's the moment Sasha finally breaks. All the fear, the betrayal, the realization that his best friend had been lying to him this entire time, it collides into a single instant of rage, and his hands go around Valya's throat. It's worth pausing here, because Sasha's fury isn't really about the fire. It's about everything Valya took from him without asking. Being remembered as a traitor to the state, his wife believing he's dead, a future he can no longer control, snatched away by someone else's desperation. Valya tries to explain that everything he did for Tanya, but that reasoning means nothing to a man who never got a choice in any of it. It takes Lakshmi begging, pleading with Sasha to stop, before he finally lets go, before the rage drains out of him and he understands that strangling Valya fixes absolutely nothing. And that guilt doesn't just disappear for Valya either. It eats at him. Which brings us to the plan that ultimately defines the entire episode. With Venera knocked off its trajectory and no propellant left to correct course, Valya proposes something almost unthinkable. He'll manually pilot the bathysphere himself, using it to nudge the ship back onto its path home. It's not a rescue mission. It's a one-way trip to Venus, and he knows it. In the time he has left, Valya doesn't regret protecting Tanya, but he finally sees clearly how much collateral damage that protection caused Sasha and Lakshmi. And this, sacrificing himself, is the only way he can think to make it right. Because let's be honest, there was never a version of this story where Valya gets to go home, land back in Soviet territory, and he's executed. Land somewhere foreign, and he spends the rest of his life hunted by Soviet intelligence. He had no future waiting for him anywhere. So he chooses the one ending that actually saves someone. He severs the umbilical cord, lets the bathysphere fall freely, and in his final moments, he looks out at a planet where no human has ever stood. It's a strange kind of peace. He knows it's over, but he also knows Sasha confirmed the trajectory correction worked before the connection cut out. Valya dies alone, but not for nothing. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the chief designer gets the news that changes everything. Sergei Nikolov shows up at his door to tell him Venera might still be operational, which means his cosmonauts, the ones he's called his Eagles, might still be alive. And the second he hears that, his mission shifts entirely. It's no longer about the glory of reaching Venus. It's about getting these 3 people home, without the state killing them the moment they land. He knows returning to Kazakhstan as originally planned is a death sentence. So he does the only thing he can from where he's standing. He runs the math. If Sasha and Lakshmi can adjust their entry angle and hit the atmosphere at a steeper roll, The increased drag alone could shift their landing site away from Soviet territory entirely. No propellant needed, just physics and trust. Getting that information into space, though, means finding people willing to risk everything to pass along a single string of numbers. Nikolov turns to Stepanov, who initially wants nothing to do with any of it. He doesn't even believe Venera survived, and he's genuinely worried the spacecraft can't handle the thermal stress of a harder re-entry. It's not until Nikolov invokes the chief designer's name, implying the request came directly from him, that Stepanov's resistance cracks. That's the kind of loyalty this man commands. Everyone in the program wants his approval, and the second Stepanov believes his mentor personally needs him, he's in. The plan itself is almost elegant in how sneaky it is. Direct transmissions to Venera would get intercepted instantly, but there are brief windows during Salyut 1's orbit where contact with Star City drops out entirely. And in those blind spots, Anastasia can relay the message without anyone listening in. Stepanov knows full well this is treason. He does it anyway, purely out of loyalty to a man who once believed in him. And somewhere in a crowded, anonymous market, the chief designer's wife hands Nikolov the actual calculations, along with a quiet, desperate plea to keep her husband out of danger. A plea that, as we'll see, doesn't exactly hold up. Once the coded message reaches Venera, Sasha initially dismisses it as static, meaningless noise. Lakshmi is the one who catches it, who realizes there's a pattern buried inside, a set of coordinates pointing toward Finland instead of Soviet soil. It's the chief designer reaching across an impossible distance to save them. To confirm the message landed, Anastasia risks a call on the backup radio, and hearing Sasha's voice again nearly breaks her. He asks if they'll ever see each other again once he's living in Finland, and she tells him not to think about that, just to focus on getting there. He promises that if the plan works, he'll find a way back to her side of the world somehow. Both of them understand the reality underneath that promise. Leaving the Soviet Union isn't something Anastasia can do. She'll be stuck exactly where she is, and the best she can hope for is knowing Sasha is alive somewhere, even if that somewhere is a place she'll never be able to visit. For a moment, it looks like it might actually work, and then Lyudmila fires a missile, and everything falls apart. Back in Moscow, news of Venera's approach doesn't trigger celebration. It triggers panic. An American asset is aboard a Soviet spacecraft, and that's not a headline anyone in power wants attached to their names. Lyudmila floats the idea of swapping in body doubles so the state can still claim credit for reaching Venus without acknowledging who actually got them there. The deputy chairman shuts that down immediately. The Kremlin already announced there was no mission to Venus. You can't walk that back. Instead, the order comes down cold. Deal with the cosmonauts the moment they land. Chief designer Petrovsky volunteers to personally handle things in Kazakhstan, and the praise he receives for stepping up visibly stings Lyudmila. She needs to prove she's the more capable one, which means she needs to be the one controlling the cosmonauts' fate, not him. The problem is, she doesn't have a lead until Irina hands her one. Irina's loyalty to Lyudmila is genuinely fascinating to watch unfold. She's clearly unsettled by her mentor's methods, the interrogations, the cruelty, but there's also something magnetic about Lyudmila to her. A rare example of a woman holding real power in a system that almost never allows it. So Irina digs through flagged recordings on her own initiative, and she flags something suspicious. Stepanov's routine has changed, and he's been meeting privately with Nikolov. That's all Lyudmila needs. Nikolov gets pulled in and brought straight to what he thinks is the chief designer's home, where he finds a battered, bloodied man sitting in a chair. Lyudmila demands he confess what he told the cosmonauts, and when she threatens to shoot the man in front of him, Nikolov cracks, blurting out the trajectory change and the Finland landing site. It's only afterwards, shoved into a van, that he sees the real chief designer sitting quietly in the corner and realizes the man he watched get beaten was a decoy, a lookalike used to trick a confession out of him. Lyudmila was never going to touch the actual chief designer. He's too valuable to the state to risk losing. When Nikolov breaks down over what he's done, the chief designer doesn't blame him. He simply says the state has always used people this way and tells him there's nothing to apologize for. Armed with the real landing coordinates, Lyudmila launches a missile to knock Venera off its Finland-bound path and force it down inside Soviet territory instead. Petrovsky, meanwhile, is left standing in Kazakhstan, waiting for a landing that was never going to happen, completely blindsided, and it's already costing him his credibility. The missile works. Sasha and Lakshmi come down near the Finnish border instead of safely across it, and they know immediately what that means. If the KGB finds them, they're dead, so they run. Soldiers open fire as they push toward the border, and Lakshmi takes a bullet to the leg. She's in agony, but Sasha refuses to let her stop moving, half carrying her the rest of the way toward the wire.